Hello all, and welcome to ManageEngine Mobile Device Manager Plus training. So myself, Naveen, I would be the trainer for you, and this would be our training schedule. So today we would be discussing in detail about device onboarding and device provisioning, and we have two more sessions following up on the 24th of October and the 7th of November, wherein we would be discussing about app management, device security, and modern management of your Windows 10 and Mac machines with the Mobile Device Manager Plus solution. And now for the training agenda. First, we would have a brief overview of what Mobile Device Manager is, what would be the architecture that we implement over here, what are the ports, and how MDM manages your mobile devices themselves. Followed by which we would look into how we would enroll mobile devices into the solution. They can be new devices or they can be devices that are already in use, or in other terms, your BYOD devices. Followed by which, after any enrollment of any device, I would say, you would like to push out certain basic configurations to your managed devices. So we'll see certain basic policies with regards to device usage, and we would also check to see as to how we can protect or containerize the corporate data in your mobile devices. And followed by which we would also talk about restricting unauthorized access of corporate exchange accounts. So this is also another important section that most of you guys would be looking out for, because you would like to secure your email accounts at any cost. And at the end, we would discuss certain scenarios and solutions. So since I am from a support background, I've seen a lot of scenarios, a lot of questions that were put forth by our customers themselves. So I've shared a few over here. And so these are the general scenarios that pop up from time to time. I hope this helps you guys a lot. So let's get started with our first topic for the day, which would be overview of the Mobile Device Manager Plus solution. So the supported operating systems with the Mobile Device Manager Plus solution are nothing but your Apple iOS, your Android, Windows, Chromebooks, and we also support Apple TV and your Microsoft Surface Hub as well. So all these, I would say products, all these OS systems are supported with your Mobile Device Manager Plus solution right now. And we are also available as a standalone solution. So first and foremost, the Mobile Device Manager Plus is a standalone solution that is available as an on-premise solution and as a cloud-based solution. For all the MSP clients out there, we also have the on-premise solution of the Mobile Device Manager Plus MSP. And recently, we have also released your MSP edition on the cloud. And for a few users who have joined in today, I guess you guys will be very well or very well aware of the Desktop Central solution. So the Desktop Central solution is the unified endpoint management solution that we provide from ManageEngine. It can manage any legacy Windows machines, your Mac machines, your Linux machines, your servers, and along with the Mobile Device Manager Plus platform, you have complete control over all of your endpoints. So the Desktop Central would be the flagship UEM solution that we provide. And now for the integration. So the Desktop Central, along with MDM, is a really hard-bound integration. But apart from that, as a standalone service, MDM does integrate with services like Spiceworks, Service Desk Plus, Zendesk, Jira, ServiceNow. So you guys would be knowing about all these help desk tools, and all these help desk tools can now be integrated in depth with your Mobile Device Manager Plus solution. So you'd have complete control of your mobile devices from the respective solutions itself. And we also support Zoho CRM or our Zoho Creator application integration in order to push out any apps from the Creator app itself. And we also support third-party API key integration. So even if the products that you're using is not present over here, it's totally fine. You can use the API key integration that we do provide and integrate your solutions with the MDM. And now for the architecture. MDM would generally take up the universal architecture that is followed by any solution out there. We have three main components over here. One would be your MDM server. Two would be the notification services that are provided by the respective vendors. So if it's Apple push notification services. If it's Google, it's Firebase Cloud Messaging. Or if it's Windows, it's your Windows notification services. And the third and main component would be the mobile devices that you would like to manage. So the cycle of communication is as follows. Your MDM server would reach out to the notification services, and the notification service would then wake up your mobile device. So once the mobile device is live, using the management application or the management profile that we have within the device, it would then contact your MDM server. So all of your mobile devices now are on the go. Now, I don't find a lot of customers who would like to have all their mobile devices within one network. So in such a scenario, your mobile device server has to be exposed to the internet. That's why we have the cloud service. And for our on-premise users, instead of exposing the entire mobile device manager plus server to the internet, we can offer an additional security component called as the secure gateway. So this collects any details that are passed on from your mobile devices and then forwards it to your MDM server itself. So this secure gateway service can stay within the DMZ. And this is specific only to our on-premise users. And at the end, you also have AD Active Directory integration or AD integration. So the main reason as to why you would like to go for an AD integration is to either send out emails to your users to get them enrolled into the MDM solution or for device provisioning purposes. So we'll talk more about it in the slides to come. And now for the ports used by the Mobile Device Manager Plus solution. Again, if you guys are on the cloud solution, all you need is just a 443 port just to access the console. Apart from that, all the other communications and the ports would be taken care by us. But if you are an on-premise user, then the most important port that you would have to allow in the in the Mobile Device Manager Plus service would be the port 9383. So it's an inbound port so that your devices can reach out to the Mobile Device Manager Plus server itself. Now we had looked into how the architecture is, what are the ports that are used, what are the supported OS systems, but how do we actually manage the mobile devices? Well, in the case of Android, we have an MDM application that would manage the mobile device. But in the case of your Apple or your Windows or your Chromebooks, we have something called as the management profile. So it's the native client that these OS systems have provided, which we take advantage of, and we would install our management profile, which would then manage your devices itself. So let me take you through the MDM portal and show you what are all tabs that we provide with the solution. So this would be the MDM solution itself. You have the home tab with all these details like platform summary, device type, BYOD summary, etc. You have your device management tab, which we'd be talking more about this in next week's session, if I'm not wrong, wherein we'll be dealing with profiles, application, remote control, distributing documents to your devices, all the cool stuff. And you have your inventory tab over here. So here is where we would track your mobile devices in case you'd like to track them. You have an entire list of all the devices that are currently enrolled with the system. And if you'd like to perform certain actions on them, you can perform them from here as well. You also have the option to go for enrollment. So today we will be talking thoroughly about all the enrollment methods that we have under the Mobile Device Manager Plus solution. We have the reports tab so that you guys can collect reports of certain details from your mobile devices themselves, and the admin tab. So it's not just the administrator who's going to be working on the MDM console. If you'd like to add an additional technician, if you'd like to set up certain services as an administrator, all these actions can be performed from your admin tab. And last but not least is the support tab, wherein you can get to know what's new in the MDM. You can read through certain KBs if you're facing some difficulties, and you can also chat with us as well. So we provide a 24/5 chat for you guys. So if there's any questions, you can always raise it up to us. And talking about chat, I also have an expert panel beside me. So if you have any questions during the webinar, you can always raise it over to us in the chat, and we would be able to answer all your queries. Now let's get started with the first and the most important topic for the day, which would be enrolling your mobile devices into the MDM solution. So onboarding a device is the most crucial step when it comes to managing a mobile device, because this determines as to how you are going to manage your devices itself. And there are two types of devices that we generally see. We see people or companies who purchase new devices, and these devices are going to be used as corporate devices for your employees, or we see companies which make use of personal devices that the user has, which in other terms is your BYOD enrollment. So we'd first start off with the personal device enrollment under the MDM solution. So when it comes to personal devices, we have two enrollment options that are available. One would be enrollment with invites, and the second option would be self-enrollment. Now, what are the benefits when you go for an self-enrollment or an email invite enrollment? You can first isolate the corporate space from the personal space in your mobile devices. You can also prevent unauthorized data access. So when there is a containerization taking place in your mobile device, you can make sure that no one has access to the data within the container itself. And you can also restrict the sharing of corporate data with other applications or with other cloud services as well. Now let's go for the first topic, which is enrollment with invites. So enrollment with invites, it's pretty simple. You have an admin. So let's take, for example, I'll be the administrator over here, and I would like to send an enrollment invite to my user. So what I would do is I would go to the portal, send an invite, and my user would have to accept the invitation, scan the QR code, and process the enrollment itself. So that is how we would proceed with enrolling a mobile device, and the device would get registered. So let me show you how you can perform that task under the MDM solution. So you come down to enrollment tab over here. Under devices, you would click on enroll device. So take, for example, I am sending an email invite to an iOS device. I can choose iOS device over here. And now I am presented with two options. One is the by myself option, and the second option is through user invites. Please do note that the first option, the by myself option, is only in a case wherein you would like to register the mobile device under the administrator's email address. Only in such a case would I recommend you guys to go forward with the by myself option. And you also have a small tag over here called as owned by. So owned by is nothing but a tag. So in many companies, they also provide mobile devices, and though they are sponsored by the corporate, they can still be used as a personal devices. So in such a scenario, you can choose what the owned by category would be, and you can also assign them to a particular group. So the same would apply for through user invites. So instead of enrolling the device with your email address, you're now going to send the email invite to a different email address. So herein, you can go for an option wherein you can go ahead and you can check on the local user type. So the local user is where you would choose a username and an email address under the mobile device manager plus solution itself. So you can choose, or you can add a username and an email address under the mobile device manager plus platform, but this email address and username would not have any domain. So the domain it's attached to is just a dummy domain called as MDM. However, you can go ahead and integrate your Active Directory with the Mobile Device Manager Plus platform, and then you can choose the domain name as Zoho Corp and choose the email address to whom you would like to distribute this invite to. At that point of time, you would see that your domain, which you have added, would be populated over here. So under the same enrollment tab, Active Directory, you would have the option to go ahead and add your domain into the Mobile Device Manager Plus platform. You have on-premise AD, Azure AD, and a hybrid Azure AD that you can integrate with our service over here. So once that is done, you can send out an enrollment invite and your user can follow the steps that are given over there. So pretty much the enrollment steps are nothing but the details that are displayed on the screen. So they will be presented with a QR code. So your user can open up the camera on the mobile device, scan the QR code, and proceed with the enrollment itself. And in such a scenario, when you would like to enroll multiple users under the MDM solution using the email invite option, you can go for a bulk enrollment, wherein you can add a CSV, which has a chunk of details like username, domain name, email address, and the platform type, the mobile device type that they are going to use. So in this way, an email would be triggered to all the users, and they can start enrolling their personal devices into the MDM solution. So now let's see what happens when they scan a QR code on their mobile device. So it comes up with the first page to proceed with the MDM profile installation. They can click on Allow, proceed with downloading the management profile. From there, they would be navigated to the settings tab, and they would have to download the or install the profile that has been downloaded, followed by which they would have to trust the remote management certificate. So if all these 6 steps are performed in your iOS devices, and we would take them through all the steps, your devices would be enrolled with the MDM solution. The same case would apply for Android, but there'll be a small twist. We would download the MDM application first. We would also provide the link on the email. Your users can scan the QR code and the enrollment would be completed. So this process in the iOS has been introduced recently, starting from iOS 12.0. So here are certain options that you might want to look into. So first thing is the email invites are specific to an individual user and a device, and the OTP that goes along with the email expires in 7 days. So you'd have to keep these points in your mind. And once that is done, we have another option called as self-enrollment. So as I mentioned in the last slide, this email enrollment that we are using is specific for a user or for a device. So it's feasible in a case wherein you have, say, possibly 50 devices. All the users out here, what type of device they use. Users have, say, 2 or 3 devices, each of a different flavor of OS itself. Or what if you have, say, 500 users who you would like to onboard to the Mobile Device Manager Plus solution? In such a scenario is where we would bring in your self-enrollment option. So the first and foremost step that you'd have to go forward with the self-enrollment option is to integrate your Active Directory services with the MDM. And once that is done, you'd have to go through certain settings where you can allow the self-enrollment either for selected AD groups or for all the AD groups itself. And now I will show you how the self-enrollment works. So we generate a URL unique to each and every service. So take, for example, one particular user is going to access this URL. We would check to see what type of machine that is, and we would also mention the enrollment steps. So the webinar that I'm presenting right now is from a Windows 10 machine. So since we support enrollment of Windows 10 machines, we have immediately provided the steps as to how a user can enroll their Windows 10 machine. So similarly, for your iOS or for your Android devices, we would display the steps on their screen itself. So you just have to make sure that on a global email alert, you send out this particular URL. So when the users access their the particular URL from their personal mobile devices, they would be triggered to go ahead and proceed with the enrollment itself. And once the enrollment has been completed, you can also drop these devices into respective groups. So these groups can be pre-configured with all the profiles and all the applications that you would like to distribute to a set number of devices. So let's see how the self-enrollment works. So once you click on that URL, as I mentioned, if it's going to be an iOS device, you directly go to the profile page itself. If it's an Android device, we would take you through the Play Store. We would ask you to install the MDM application, and on the browser we would display the server name and the port number that you would have to use, followed by which the user would have to provide the email address, their domain address itself, and the next step would be the domain authentication. So they would have to provide their username and password of the domain that they are using, followed by which their details will be authenticated by the Mobile Device Manager Plus solution, and their devices would be enrolled with the system itself. So this, I would say, would be a more simple enrollment option that we provide with the MDM solution over your invite method itself. So this is, purely in a case wherein you guys have a lot of devices to enroll with the system. So this covers the BYOD enrollment under the Mobile Device Manager Plus platform. And now I would be moving into another section wherein we would deal as to how you can enroll corporate devices or fresh devices that you would like to have complete control over. So we'll first start off with a few benefits, see why the corporate enrollment is important. So here, the enrollment of new devices is always a pain because you'd have to complete the entire initial setup process manually, and at all times it's necessary to have a user or an admin intervention in order to complete the enrollment process itself. But to tackle these situations is why we have our automated enrollment methods. So for iOS, we have our Apple Business Manager solution, and for Android, we have the Xero Touch enrollment. The benefits that come with these automated enrollments are you can silently install the applications on your mobile devices. So without any user intervention, applications can be installed on your mobile devices. You can whitelist just specific applications alone to run on your mobile devices. So that is again an advantage that we provide with the automated enrollment methods over here. We can also manage OS updates on your devices as well. So this is crucial in the case wherein you have certain enterprise applications which would not work well in a particular OS. And also, one other option, which is a pretty important one, would be full support of our profiles and configurations. So any profiles or any configurations that we have out there can be completely supported in your corporate devices. And now for the prerequisites, if you're going for such automated enrollments, is that you would need to create an account either with Apple for their Apple Business Manager services or with Google for their Zero Touch enrollment services. And the second important point would be to purchase these devices from an authorized reseller or from the OEM vendors directly. So both the options have to be met with in order to proceed with these automated enrollment types. So this is the automated enrollment chart in general. So you integrate your respective portals. It can be the Apple Business Manager, or it can be the Zero Touch portal that you'd like to go forward with. You can integrate the portals with the MDM solution. You can add the devices to the respective portals, followed by which you can just distribute the devices to your users and ask them to turn on the device. Once the device is devices are turned on, they would get registered with the MDM solution. So the entire setup process depends upon the admin and with the respective Apple services or Google services itself. On the mobile device, it's just turning on the mobile device and it would automatically enroll your mobile devices into our MDM solution. So let's start off with the Apple Business Manager first. So this is how we would proceed with the Apple Business Manager enrollment. If I could take you to the portal one time before we proceed with the steps, I can show you that under Apple Business Manager, we have the option to choose whether you'd like to enroll for a business or whether you'd like to enroll for a school. So we support Apple Business Manager and Apple School Manager as well for educational systems out there. Once you have selected that particular option, we would ask you to go ahead and download the public key for your service. So it would be a .pem file that would be downloaded onto your machine, followed by which you'd have to navigate yourself into your Apple Business Manager portal. So here we have the option to sign in to your Apple Business Manager portal. Or if you don't have an Apple Business Manager portal, we always have the sign up option, wherein you can go ahead, sign up your company for the Apple Business Manager portal. So again, this is completely a solution that is provided by Apple themselves. So you'd have to provide all the right details and then get their approval for using this particular solution itself. So once you have got that, you can sign into their solution and you can go down to settings over here, choose device management settings, and then click on add MDM server. So once you have selected add MDM server, you can provide a meaningful name to the server itself and then upload the public key that was downloaded from the Mobile Device Manager Plus platform. So once you have done all those details, you can save and then generate a new server token. So you can download the server token, which would give you a notification like this. You don't have to worry about it. You can just click on download server token and proceed with downloading the .p7m file itself. So once it's successfully downloaded from the Apple Business Manager site, you can proceed to the next step under the Mobile Device Manager Plus platform, which is to upload the signed certificate. So you'd upload the signed certificate or the .p7m file over to the service itself. And you would also have to provide an email ID to notify you guys about this server token expiry. So the server token expires once every year. So you'd have to make sure that you provide the right email addresses over here so that one of the members from your team can renew this token on a yearly basis. Once that is done, you can click on upload, and the next page is your device activation settings page. So here is where you can have two settings in place. One is to authenticate and auto-assign users based upon device activation. So this makes sure that when your users turn on their device, they would have to provide their Active Directory credentials, and their devices would be mapped to a particular user based on the AD details that are provided. And you can also configure certain other steps wherein you can skip the initial deployment phase. So you don't want the user to go ahead and sign into Apple ID. You can do that. You don't want to set up any payments. You don't want to set up Siri, Zoom, passcode, anything during the initial setup stages. You just like to skip all the configuration steps that are possible. You can go ahead, you can select all, and you can just skip them. And once this is done, you can click on create, and this would create the Apple Business Manager service within the MDM solution. And once that is done, it's all about adding your mobile devices into the ABM portal so that we would be able to get the details from Apple themselves. So for that, you can go to the Apple Business Manager solution. Once again, move over to settings, device management settings, and then you have to provide your Apple customer number if you're directly purchasing the devices from Apple, or the DEP reseller ID. The reseller from whom you have bought these devices, they would have a DEP reseller ID. You'd have to mention those details. So once those details are provided, Apple would check to see what and all purchases that you have purchased with that reseller or with the Apple services itself, and they would list out all the mobile devices for you. What you can do after that is you can go ahead and proceed with assigning the device to our MDM server. So again, under the Apple Business Manager portal, you can either provide the serial numbers one by one, or the best option would be to download the CSV file that Apple provides and upload it over here, followed by which you can choose an action to assign it to the server, and the server that you would be assigning it to would nothing but be the MDM server itself. So you can choose the Zilker server or the MDM server that you have created under the Mobile Device Manager Plus platform, and then proceed with adding this particular device to your MDM solution. So once the assignment has been completed, you can then distribute the mobile device to your user, and when they turn on the device and connect it to a Wi-Fi, it would automatically check if that device is added to the ABM service, followed by which the user would not have any option to skip this page, but to proceed with configuring the mobile device itself. And if they proceed, it would install the certificate from the ABM solution, and your device would be managed. It would directly go into the welcome screen, and your device now is completely managed by the Mobile Device Manager Plus platform. So this is in general as to how you would proceed with enrolling a mobile device into the MDM solution using your Apple Business Manager platform. Now we would see how you can proceed for the same with Zero Touch enrollment, or in other terms for your Android devices. So Zero Touch enrollment is the competitor enrollment program that was brought in by Android. So if Apple is going to bring in a feature, sure, Android is not far behind. They would also bring in the same type of enrollment structure that Apple provides. So that would be your Zero Touch enrollment portal. The only additional prerequisite that you'd have to keep in mind over here is that the reseller of your Android devices would need to provide you with your Zero Touch enrollment portal itself. So rather than submitting a request like in the case of Apple, your reseller would have to go ahead and proceed with giving you a Zero Touch enrollment account. But once that account is in your hands, all you'd have to do is to create a configuration within the Zero Touch enrollment portal itself. So here under configurations, you can click on add configuration, and you can create a new one. You can give it a meaningful name, and you can choose the EMM provider as Mobile Device Management, MDM. You can give a company name and the contact email address, and you would have to copy paste a DPC extra. So this is nothing but a JSON file which would contain the MDM server details. So let me go ahead into another solution over here. I'll go into Zero Touch enrollment, start, and I would be presented with the JSON data. All I'd have to do is to copy this particular JSON data and then paste it onto my DPC extra over here. So this would make sure that any device that has this particular configuration is pointed to my MDM server. So once I have successfully copied those details, I can click on apply and save the new configuration that I've just created. And once I have saved this configuration, I can go to devices page over here and then apply the configuration to my devices. So again, just like your ABM solution, you'd have to add your devices into the Zero Touch enrollment portal and then apply this configuration. And once the configuration is applied, and once you distribute your mobile devices to the users, they can just turn them on for the first time, connect it to a Wi-Fi. Automatically, this would recognize that, hey, this particular device is in a Zero Touch enrollment solution. So what Google would do is Google would automatically push the MDM application to the device. You'd have no option other than to just continue. So once you continue with the enrollment, the work device would be set up and the enrollment would be completed itself. So this is how we would proceed with enrolling your mobile devices into the MDM solution itself. And now, once your mobile devices are on the MDM solution, you'd have to assign the user to a device. So take, for example, one device has been now added through the ABM solution. A user has successfully started it up, but they have not provided their AD credentials. In such a scenario, the device would land on a particular page over here under the Apple Business Manager portal itself, or if it's going to be a Xero Touch enrollment device, it would fall under your Xero Touch enrollment portal. What you'd have to do is you would have to assign the user to the device. Again, here you have the opportunity to assign it to a local user, or you can assign it to a domain user as per your requirements. And you can also map the device to a particular group and also provide the device name as well. So this is one way wherein you can manually assign the users to each and every device. But if you already know, this particular user is going to have this device, but they are not going to turn it on for some time now, we do have the Assign Users tab over here, wherein you can just mention the serial number, the username, the email address, and the domain name. So all these 4 fields alone is a necessary column. If you have filled up all these details in a CSV file, uploaded it over here, as and when your users turn on the device, we would cross-check for the serial number. We will check to see who username, email address, and domain name is pointed to. We would automatically assign the device to that particular user. And if you have also given the group name, we would also map the device to that particular group as well. So you can completely automate this process wherein when your mobile devices are turned on, they are automatically added to the MDM solution and the users are assigned, followed by assigning the users. They are dropped into a group, and when they are dropped into a group, all the profiles and apps or the documents that you have distributed for that particular group would be distributed to the devices as well. So the complete process can be automated over here. And right now we have discussed in detail about different enrollment types like invite, self-enrollment, Apple Business Manager, or Zero Touch enrollment. But under enrolling your corporate devices, you have various other enrollments. You have Apple Configurator, which is a secondary method that Apple provides, wherein you can use a MacBook to enroll your iOS devices. Or you have the NFC or the EMM token enrollment that, say your Android devices provide, or you have Windows, wherein they have autopilot, which is similar to your Apple Business Manager or your Zero Touch enrollment itself. So since there are close to around, I would say 12, if I'm not wrong, enrollment types or 10 enrollment types that we provide with the MDM solution, I would not be able to cover them all in one single go over here. So I've covered the major part of the enrollment system itself. But now that the devices have been successfully enrolled, it's all about provisioning the mobile devices with a particular system. So here under device management tab, as I mentioned, you can create a group. So here under device management tab, as I mentioned, you can create a group. So this is just to make sure that you guys are still in touch. When you assign a group, this is where your grouping system would take place, and this is where you proceed with associating your profiles and apps. We would talk more about grouping and distributing apps in the next training session. But today, I would quickly head over to the profiles tab over here. I already have a profile created for you guys, but if you'd like to create a new profile in your solution, you can go ahead, click on any OS type that you'd like, and then proceed with configuring the details. If you already have a profile created, you can gladly go ahead and modify that profile from the Actions button, and then you can proceed with configuring the profile. So when you go for a profile, you have multiple options wherein you can configure the passcode, you can configure the Wi-Fi, VPN, etc. So let me start off with passcode over here. So here under passcode, I can make sure that there will be a simple passcode that is set on my device, but the passcode length should be 7. What are the number of special characters, etc. So I can completely determine what type of passcode my user has to set on the mobile device itself. I can also push a Wi-Fi profile to my device so that it automatically connects to that Wi-Fi solution as and when it comes within that range. I can also add any VPN configurations to my mobile devices. So if you're using any VPN clients right now, you can add their configurations over to the mobile device itself. So the entire connection would be through that secure VPN tunnel. But if you'd like to point just a few applications alone to the VPN solution, that is again possible using the MDM. So when, take for example, Zoho Books or Zoho CRM is selected, only those particular applications would use the VPN services, while all the other applications cannot use your VPN. Account type over here, the mail server details, and we would be able to create the mail account on your device. Or in case you guys are using the Exchange Active Sync service, then we have a separate payload wherein you can mention the account name, the host type, whether it's going to be Office 365 or Exchange on-premise itself. It would be up to your choice as to what type of service you are using. And we would automatically fetch the username, the email address, and the domain name from the respective services itself. So from your Active Directory, we would get all those details and we would configure the email mailbox on your mobile device. And last but not least, you can also go for managed web domains, wherein if a particular document is downloaded from any of the mentioned websites over here, it can only be opened by the managed apps, basically apps that are distributed by the MDM solution or by the MDM app itself. And with iOS devices, we also support enterprise single sign-on, wherein for certain applications or all the applications that are distributed through the MDM, using your Active Directory credentials, if you sign into one application, you can sign into all the applications. But for that, your AD needs to have this Kerberos authentication enabled in your systems itself. So if that is enabled, using that, we can proceed and we can go for an enterprise single sign-on. So now when you apply, say, a profile to your device, so if I'm going back to the device management tab over here, I'm going to groups and devices, and I can choose a particular group. I can hit on actions and I can associate the profile that I have just created. So this would make sure any configurations within that profile would be distributed to a group, and I can have as much as profiles as I would like in the groups itself. But please do make sure that you don't have any contradicting profiles over there or contradicting payloads that you might have configured in the multiple profiles. You can also distribute a profile to a single device if required. So you can choose one particular device, click on associate profile, and just push this one profile alone to that device itself. So once a profile has been successfully deployed to a device, since we have set up the passcode policy, it would bring up the passcode requirement, and the user is forced to set up a passcode on their device within the next 60 minutes. Else, the device itself would automatically take them to the settings page, and they would be forced to set up a passcode on their mobile devices itself. While if you're going for email services or VPN, everything would be configured on the back end itself. So once that is done, we can then go ahead and look into another important topic, which is to secure the corporate data on your mobile devices. So securing corporate data on the mobile devices is very important because corporate data can be shared in multiple ways. And we would term them as data breaches. It can be between devices using, say, AirDrop or Bluetooth or even Android Beam right now. So you can transfer the files instantly. That is one form of data breach. You have another data breach wherein you can go ahead and upload documents to third-party cloud storage services. And then you can also have data breach within applications. So Take, for example, someone just got an email attachment, but they are just too lazy to send it over the email itself to their colleague. Instead, they would upload it to WhatsApp and they would send it over to the user. So this again is a data breach because your corporate data is in the hands of personal applications. So to prevent such a scenario is why we bring in the containerization. This makes sure that it separates your corporate workspace from the personal workspace itself. And on Android devices, by default, if you enroll your Android devices, we would create a container on your devices to make sure that any application that is distributed by the MDM solution falls within that container, which is encrypted so that no communication data would go from the encrypted space to the personal devices itself. But in the case of iOS, however, it would be a bit tricky because iOS devices in general are encrypted devices. Apple would not allow us to add another layer of encryption. So in such a scenario, what happens is that any app, it can be a personal application or it can be a corporate application that you are distributing through the MDM would fall inside the mobile device itself, inside the common workspace. So at that point of time, say if you have set up an email service, and if you've got, say, an attachment with that email, and when you click on that attachment, it would provide you with all the options that are on your screen right now. You can send it over AirDrop, you can open it with all the personal applications. But if you'd like to prevent that in your iOS devices, you would have to go for a particular policy. So here under profiles, you can create a special profile just for your Apple devices alone. You can continue it with a meaningful name, wherein under a security, we have the option to prevent the sharing of data between managed apps and unmanaged apps, and unmanaged apps to managed apps as well, which is the vice versa. So this would make sure that there is a container-like setup created in the backend of your mobile devices so that any managed application cannot talk or share data to any of your personal applications on an iOS device. If you'd like to increase it, you can also restrict screenshots and screen sharing, and even you can restrict the AirDrop functionality in your iOS devices as well completely. And once that is done, and once that profile has been applied to the device, you can see that when you try to access a particular, say, attachment that is present in your email services, it can now only be opened by, say, the Office 365 application or the MDM app, both of which are considered as corporate applications as they are distributed through the MDM solution itself. So this is how we make sure that your corporate app data stays within the corporate sphere itself and does not get leaked to any other personal applications. And since we are talking about corporate data, data leakage protection, etc., my next focus would be on to securing your corporate emails from unauthorized access. So here we have the ability to set up a particular solution called as your conditional exchange access. So before I proceed with going into the conditional exchange access, I have covered a meaningful ground over here, like right from enrollment to going ahead and pushing out certain profiles to your devices itself. So if you have any questions with regards to the enrollment or any questions with regards to distributing profiles or what type of profiles are provided with the MDM, you can always raise it to the chat team and they would be able to answer your questions. So once that is done, you can also divert your attention over to the screen over here because the conditional exchange access is really important if you are using, say, an Office 365 service or an Exchange on-premise mail service to manage your emails itself. So this is a feature that is present specifically for these two solutions itself. What you would have to do over here is you would have to integrate your Office 365 or your Exchange on-premise server with the Mobile Device Manager Plus platform. And once the integration is completed, we would enforce the conditional exchange access policy onto your devices. And this policy would make sure that only the devices that are enrolled with the MDM solution would have access to your email service. And one other prerequisite that is really important over here is that you would have to distribute the Exchange Active Sync profile to the devices, and the email service has to be created on the mobile device with the help of MDM. So there are two prerequisites over here. One, the devices have to be enrolled with the MDM. Two, the profile, the email profile or the email payload has to be distributed through the MDM solution. Only if these two prerequisites are met with would we allow the mobile device to have access to your Exchange server itself. So let's see how we can do that. So this would be the MDM portal itself. You can click on device management and you can come down to conditional exchange access. When you come down to conditional exchange access, you can choose what type of exchange service you are using right now and then provide the respective domain admin credentials. So here you have your username and password, which has to be the admin username and password for your Exchange on-premise or the Office 365 solution, followed by which you can proceed with the setup of your conditional exchange access over here. So we would start syncing with the Exchange service to see how many mailboxes are present with the solution. You can then go ahead and configure an access policy wherein you can implement this access policy either to all the users in your system or to just a selected number of users alone. And if you're going for all the users and you don't want to get into trouble with all your, say, higher management people or upper management people over there, you can click here to exclude a few alone so that they are not requested to enroll their devices in order to access their emails. And followed by which you can also provide your users a grace time of, say, 2 days or 3 days period for them to enroll their mobile devices. So instead of immediately blocking the access, you can give them a grace period of 2 or 3 days, wherein every day we would send out an email to them asking them to use the self-enrollment URL in order to enroll their devices with the MDM. So once their devices are enrolled, it would be taken up as a managed device, and then we would allow them to use their corporate emails in their mobile devices itself. So that is how the access policy or the conditional exchange access would work within the MDM solution. So based out of one particular identifier called as the Exchange Active Sync identifier, or in short, the EAS identifier, what we would do is when we set up the email service in one of your email client, we would collect the Exchange Active Sync identifier. We would store it within our database, and as and when a device tries to reach the Exchange on-premise service, we would act like a firewall in between. We would check to see if that EAS identifier is available within the MDM. If it's available, we would allow that particular mobile device to have access to the email service. If that EAS identifier is not available, we would automatically block it. So again, I would have to say this process can be done manually on the OWA itself, but if people are already doing that, you guys would know it's a really hectic process because you'd have to check and see each and every Exchange Active Sync identifier out there, choose the correct one, and then block it so that your users would not be affected by this. So in order to circumvent all those hurdles, or you can say difficulties, is why we have the conditional exchange access solution in place. So this comes to our last topic, which is scenarios and solutions. So the first scenario over here is, can we enroll devices that are not purchased from authorized resellers into the Apple Business Manager? A short story over here is, first Apple did not allow this option, but then they started to feel the wrath, if I'm not wrong, of customers themselves. And what happened over here is that from iOS 11.0, they had brought in an option wherein using Apple Configurator. So using a Mac machine and a software in it called as the Apple Configurator services, you can manually add each and every device to your Apple Business Manager solution itself. So that is possible if your iOS devices can be upgraded to any version above 11.0. So this would be, the solution, the Apple Configurator solution that you can use in order to add your devices onto the ABM solution. But there are instances wherein certain companies cannot get an ABM account. It's something that is out of our hands because it's completely determined by Apple themselves. But in the case you guys can't get an ABM account, but you still like to completely manage your mobile devices, you can use the Apple Configurator service and then enroll your devices with the MDM solution. If you'd like, you can request a demo session to us. So you can use the chat. If anyone of you out there would like to have a demo session as to how we can enroll the devices through Apple Configurator, or to even show you a POC setup of your environment, we can have a free demo session for you guys. So you can just ping us on chat right now and we can schedule a demo session for you. So using this Apple Configurator, you can add your devices to the ABM solution and then manage them as well. Scenario 2 is, I want to leverage the benefits of Xero Touch enrollment, but some of my devices are not supported. So this is the similar case again. You have not purchased the devices from Google directly or from its resellers, or your devices just do not meet the prerequisites that the Xero Touch enrollment has set. In such a scenario, what you can do is you can use an alternate method that we provide called as the EMM token enrollment. So here, under the enrollment page, we have something called as EMM token enrollment, wherein you can go ahead and you can choose to scan a QR code. So in case your devices are 6.0 and above, you can provide this particular DPC token called as AFW #MEMDM, which would download the MDM application on the device automatically, and you can scan this particular QR code to complete it. So, during the initial stages of the device, when you're setting the device up, instead of providing your own Gmail account or your corporate Gmail account, you can provide AFW #MEMDM, which would download the MDM application and which would help you to set up the device itself. So once the MDM application has been completely set up and the device is set up as well, you can click on scan QR code, scan the QR code that is generated in your service, and automatically your device would be enrolled into the solution like this. Followed by which all you'd have to do is just click on assign user and proceed with assigning a user for that particular mobile device itself. And again, you can assign users in bulk if you'd like for any enrollment options that we have out here. And now for scenario 3, what happens when 2 contradictory profiles are applied to a device? Well, as I mentioned, while creating your basic profiles itself, if 2 contradictory profiles are being created, then there might be some confusions that happen over here. So let me break this down in a more simple term for you guys. If I may, I would come down to the device management tab over here. I would move over to profiles and say I'm creating a contradictory profile in Apple, for example. So I'm creating a profile, going to restrictions over here. In restriction 1, I am restricting the camera application on my Apple device. But in profile number 2, take for example, I am allowing the camera application on my device. So when I'm going to apply profile 1 and profile 2 to my iOS device, what would happen on the iOS device itself, the OS would take a look at both the profiles and it would see which one is more secure. And according to Apple, if it's restricted, then it's secure. So what it would do, it would proceed with restricting the camera application itself. So for iOS, it would cross-check both the profiles and it would take the most secure option. But in the case if you are going for, say, Android, you are creating an Android profile for your devices itself. And I'm going for the same option again. Under restrictions, I'm blocking my camera application for profile 1. But in profile 2, which I'm going to distribute after profile 1, I am allowing the camera. In your Android, what would happen is that the OS would take up the latest profile that has been applied. So if profile 2 is the latest profile that has been applied, then the camera would be allowed in your system. So that was what would happen if you have two contradictory profiles applied on multiple devices. Scenario 4 is how can we ensure users to connect only to the Wi-Fi's that are distributed via MDM. This is again an option that we provide both in your Android as well as in your iOS section. But this is something that we would ask you to enable with caution, because only if your Wi-Fi's are distributed through the MDM services first can we go for this option wherein connect to Wi-Fi only if distributed via MDM. So it's under the same profiles, restrictions, network and roaming tab. It's available for both your Android as well as your iOS devices. But I would always, ask my users to first completely check and see if the Wi-Fi credentials given are correct. And I would always request you guys to go for 2 or 3 Wi-Fi profiles to be created with the MDM solution first, then proceed with locking down the device itself. So even if you guys are changing the Wi-Fi password in the near future for one Wi-Fi solution, your devices would still be able to get the details from the other Wi-Fis. So scenario 5 is how can we prevent sensitive corporate content from being displayed on the device lock screen? This is a good question that I had come across because, say, take for example, notifications are common. It can be for personal applications or corporate applications, but if they are displayed on the screen, you don't have to unlock a device, but you can directly read whatever details are displayed on the screen itself. So that's why we have under security restrictions, we have the option to hide all sensitive content or to not show any notifications at all if it's in the lock screen. And the same can be applied for your iOS devices, wherein you can control the lock screen options and not display your notification center while your iOS devices are locked. So it's under the same restriction security component, or sorry, restriction privacy content under your iOS section. So this is how you can prevent sensitive data from being thrown up as notifications on your lock screen itself. And this would also bring us to the end of our training session. Do rate us on a scale from 1 to 5, where 5 is the best. You can also share some love and spread some word through our social media sites. It would always encourage us to do more of these training sessions on a regular basis. And our next training is scheduled for October the 24th. It's on the same time, 11:30 EDT. So I hope to see all of you guys joining in for the app management and the device security session, as we would be dealing or discussing in depth about all the other additional features like event geo-tracking that comes along with your mobile device manager plus platform. Thank you all so much for your time. You guys have a great day, and still Thursday, but yeah, great weekend as well. Thank you.